Sports Live. In our latest episode, we sit down with Victoria, BC native and lightweight Battlefield Fight League standout Tristan Connelly. Then later on, we welcome back to the show newly crowned Combat Wrestling World Champion Matt Kaiser. And as always, we'll be discussing the latest headlines from around the globe. Keep it locked here for the next 60 minutes. Combat Sports Live starts now. All right, and we are back. Here we're at episode 5 of Combat Sports Live, and we have a lot to discuss. Keith, are you ready for the show?
I'm more than ready. I'm looking forward to it and glad we can get down to business.
Absolutely. We're going to get right into things and talk about what's been making some huge waves in the MMA world lately, which is obviously this Anderson Silva, Nick Diaz suspension, or more importantly, the Nick Diaz suspension. He has been suspended 5 years, which is a very long time in this sport. What are your feelings?
For me, it's a little bit of corruption involved with the whole situation. You know, Anderson Silva tested positive for 3 types of steroids, and he gets basically an 8-month suspension. They say it's a year, but you know, with the type of injury he's had, it's basically the next time he'd be able to fight. And they took 30% of his wage, but he came in and told them that he had a Viagra from Thailand. And that was the reason that he tested positive for 3 types of steroids. So to me, that would be more insulting towards the commission than anything could ever say to them. But instead, they made the decision to give him the year suspension. And then Nick Diaz comes along. He's the regulated rate for metabolites in your system in Nevada is 150 metabolites you're allowed to test positive for, even though Nick Diaz in the state of California has a medical marijuana card. So then a week later, the law was going to change to go to 350 metabolites of marijuana. The commission knew this was going to happen. They didn't like Nick Diaz, so they've rushed to make sure this trial was a week before that decision was turned over. And to me, it's literally amazing. There was 2 tests that came up negative. WADA, the number 1 drug association in the United States, came up negative. So they ignored the test that was the United States WADA test, and then they went with another test that was negative. The 3rd test from an independent party is what they're going with, and they suspended Nick Diaz for 5 years. I mean, Nick Diaz has a grade 8 education. He's given his whole life to the world of fighting, and just the way they looked at him and the questions they asked him, it was embarrassing that day to even watch that series and to have this panel in charge of a man's life. There should be a judge, there should be a jury, but we got these 3 people who know nothing about mixed martial arts and have a vendetta and hatred towards an individual make a decision about his life and ruin it. What's your thoughts, Kyle?
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. This is a witch hunt. I don't know what else to call it. They're really, you know, they're after Nick Diaz's head here. And it's tough to see. So he's got a 5-year suspension. So let's just talk about it in terms of monetary, financial aspect here. Anderson Silva was fined $200,000 for his bonus, and then 30% of his $600,000 show money. So, you know, that's literally a slap on the wrist with a guy like Silva's bank account. Whereas Diaz he's suspended 5 years. So let's just say, for, you know, argument's sake, he only fights once a year, but he's still asking, you know, $500,000 show money. So over those 5 years, he'd be missing out on a potential $2.5 million. This doesn't make any sense comparing the 2 fighters here. So yeah, my heart goes out to Nick Diaz because this is definitely a witch hunt.
And I 100% agree with that. And, you know, it's just, you know, this is a matter of opinion, but you look at it this way. You know, the UFC and Dana White, he has this look on his face. I can't do anything about it, but you can tell he's kind of smiling because the Diaz brothers have given them nothing but problems. They've had to sign these guys because they know they're such big fan favorites, but the financial aspect of what they sign these guys to finally fight is very, very high. I mean, Nick Diaz got paid $500,000 after losing 2 fights in a row, and that's the kind of money they had to put forth. So to him, you can see the look on his face it's almost like he'll sweep it under the rug. We'll concentrate on John Jones. We'll put enough money in to help him make sure that he gets a plea deal for breaking a lady's arm, testing positive for cocaine 12 days before his competition. This pregnant lady drives by a hit-and-run accident, and now he's probably going to get a slap on the wrist. He won't do any jail time. He'll have a big fine, and then he'll be there. Because we all know how much money the UFC can make.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Like, I don't even know where to begin all the farces on this case. Like, first of all, Nick Diaz applied for a TUE exemption, which stands for therapeutic use exemption. So that means he actually needs it. I don't know if it's concentration, his anxiety. It doesn't matter. Doctors deemed that he needs this to perform. So it's not a performance enhancing drug. I don't get what the issue is. Nick Diaz is just on the wrong side of the commission on this one.
I know, and Cal's right. You got different opinions from different people. And the next guy to come out is Big John McCarthy, who's against the rules and was really against Nick Diaz. But John, don't you run a referee's course that costs between $3,000 and $5,000? All these people flew to your courses. They took the course, and after they paid the money and after they took the course, they found out that the Nevada Athletic Commission and other commissions around the world don't endorse your course. So they spent all that money to get that referees and judges course, and now they can't use it. So John, maybe you should look at your own files and think about what you might have done that's wrong for the sport rather than, complicate Diaz's life, who's got a serious anxiety issue. If you saw the guy in that courthouse, he was nervous, he was down, he was like he was being yelled at by a teacher. Just because he feels comfortable in the cage in the ring doesn't mean his anxiety levels aren't bad in that position. I mean, he's got a grade 8 education. So, different people have different inputs on this, but I think that's the truth, in my opinion.
Yeah. And so, all that aside, we're waiting for an appeal, which is going to happen, I think, probably in the next month or two here. But aside from that, where does this realistically leave Silva? Where does this leave Diaz? If he's on the shelf for 5 years? If this stands and this is where it's at, it's likely the end of his career, no?
Well, you're right, Kyle. Like, it could be the end of his career. Like, how can it change? I mean, we've seen the culinary unions with the decision to bring MMA to New York and the huge controversy between Nevada and New York and how these politicians stay upright and they drag things on and push things on the back burner. So who even knows when that appeal could come across?
Yeah, exactly. So we're going to, much like the case itself, we're going to have to put a pin in that one and wait for the appeal because, man, there are so many farcities that need to be exposed and a lot of people up in arms about this one. So, we're going to move right along because that's just heartbreaking for Diaz. But another thing that's been making... how am I going to go to this one? All right, so we're going to move right along to another big headline that's been making waves, which was the last fight between... I got to readjust my thoughts here. All right, so we're going to move right along to another topic that's been making waves recently, which is Floyd Mayweather and his last fight against Andre Berto, and if in fact he's retired. I thought it was a fantastic fight, just another, amazing showcase of Floyd Mayweather and his, ability to, remain champion and show that incredible defensive style.
I 100% agree with you. That's why I never signed up for Twitter and I'm starting to limit myself on Facebook because the comments that people make just kind of make me angry and I don't want to comment back because I know it would be unprofessional. So I just rather not log on and hear. I mean, the guy's 40 years old. He's been undefeated for 19 years. He's been a world champion for 18. Of course, he's not fighting at the same level at 40 when he was at 21. Google back if you can find it on the internet and watch some of his older fights when he was 22 and 23 and you would see an extremely exciting performance. Floyd's performances are based on surviving and skill and keeping his family healthy and being alive and leaving the sport with no damage, and what he did was amazing. He's an incredible performer, the best defensive boxer of all time, not the greatest of all time. I wouldn't agree with that because I don't think he's had the competition and I don't think he's had the rivalries and competitiveness, fought guys 3 times like Ali Fraser or, De La Hoya, Mosley. Like, there isn't those type of confrontations, but there just wasn't those guys in the sport. But you look back and say he didn't fight anybody. Well, he fought Canelo Alvarez, who was twice his size, a youth guy. He fought Pacquiao, he fought Cotto, he fought Shane Mosley, he fought De La Hoya. I'm not sure who else you want him to fight. Will you be happy if he goes up and fights Gennady Golovkin at 168? Would that be great? Should he put on some change in his pocket and step on the scale and fight Gennady? Is that the only thing that's going to make the fans happy? I'm sorry, it's just an upsetting topic for me. I hope he retires now and walks away and just stops all the controversy and enjoys his life. He's 49-0. So what does that mean to anybody?
Yeah, 49-0 with an Olympic medal. Let's let's let the guy be. He's definitely has nothing else to prove to the sport. He's, you said it yourself. He's fought the who's who, and it's just unfortunate to hear these naysayers coming from the peanut gallery who are really offering no intelligent, defense to why, he's not the greatest of all time. He's at least in the conversation. But a lot of these people, they're saying a lot of the similar things that they'd be saying about another fighter, which is Demetrius Johnson, which exhibits, a lot of the same characteristics of being just this hyper technical guy, but he's not getting the respect he deserves. He's not getting the love, especially coming off his latest title defense. He looked amazing, but still, he's not getting the headlines. And he headlined the card, but he's not what people are talking about after the fact. How do you feel about that?
I have to agree with that too. Dimitri's an excellent fighter. I mean, when you bring down these lower weight divisions, you're not going to see knockouts, one flash knockouts and power, even though he did have an amazing knockout in the second fight against Benavidez to prove that he does have power. I mean, Dodson's an amazing fighter, and after you saw their first fight, he got knocked down 3 times. So you have to look at how much Demetrius Johnson's evolved since that fight. I saw lateral movement that he hadn't used before, head movement, slipping punches, the feints. That was the big thing, the feints. He'd feint a left hand, he'd feint a kick, he'd feint a right hand, and he'd switch direction and hit you flush with another punch. So the guy's an incredible athlete, and I think people should give him the respect he deserves.
Exactly right. But that seems like it may be even more difficult to get these days because he has officially cleaned out the division. He's fought, his toughest component twice. I don't know what's next for this guy. He's definitely deserved some time off. So I'm hoping he gets that. And by that time, hopefully somebody can emerge as the next legit contender because right now it's looking like he's at the top of the heap with no one close.
I have to agree. I think it's got to be TJ Dillashaw. I mean, TJ Dillashaw was flash knocked down by Dodson in the Ultimate Fighter season that Dodson won the Ultimate Fighter and TJ was the runner-up. And I know TJ would like to avenge that. But I think Demetrius Johnson and TJ makes sense. There's no one for each of them to fight. I think they could, TJ could go down to 125. I know he could. He's a smaller guy. It would be an incredible fight.
Yeah, absolutely right. So, let's hope Sean Shelby makes that fight happen because that would definitely be one that the fans win. And, Demetrius wins as well because he himself is looking for a great challenge. And right now it doesn't look to be out there.
All right, and that brings us to our first break. When we return, we'll be speaking with Battlefield Fight League lightweight standout Tristan Connelly. Don't go anywhere. Combat Sports Live will be right back.
Yeah. This lifestyle got me all fucked up. If you think I'm playing around, I dare you to call my bluff. You bitches can swallow nut while I'm tipping my bottle up. I was finished with all you suckers the minute I lost my trust. And I'm sick of going hungry, always living broke and bummy, asking to borrow money when you already owe $100. And basically you and everybody that you know's a junkie. All you got in the fridge, sour milk and moldy lunch meat. Feeling like no one loves me. Fuck them, y'all can keep hating. Got a problem with authority, bombing police stations. Sick of shopping for my mama's Christmas present at the dollar store. Bills are piling up, but it's more setbacks I cannot afford. Lock your doors, cause you know the boy insane. Look into my eyes, you see a Polaroid of pain. Goddamn, he was a soldier in his day. Now memories are clouded with showers of ceremonies and lowered graves.
So long and so wrong. Now where do we go from here? Roadblock, gotta hold on. Where do we go from here? I was born in the struggle and now trouble always got a way of finding me. Down and out.
All right, and we are back. That was music from Knox of Dockside Green with his latest Go From Here featuring Dana Anderson. All right, with no further ado, let's get to our first guest, Battlefield Fight League standout Tristan Connelly. Tristan, thanks a lot for coming on the show.
Yeah, no problem.
So we'll get right into it here. You're coming off a big first-round TKO of Sean Albrecht at BFL 37. I know it was probably a pretty quick fight, but do you want to walk us through what happened?
Well, Sean's a really, really tough guy. From what I heard is no one wanted to take a fight against him, and I really wanted to fight, so I jumped on it. I was a pretty big underdog. On the Tapology place that you can make your predictions, I think there was about 80 people that voted, and 0% had me as winning. And BFL even had me at like a 20-something% chance of winning. And I came out and TKO'd him in the first round, which is something that he's never had happen before. Most of his losses are to really tough guys, and they're decisions, I think, for the most part. So it was a pretty big upset on my favor. So I felt pretty good about coming off that.
Yeah, it was an amazing performance, Tristan. It's Keith. Good to have an old friend back on the show. Definitely an amazing performance. A lot of people counted you out, but being a former training partner and a former part-time coach at some points, I knew you had the heart of a warrior. I remember back in the old AFC, you fought a real tough fighter in Dan Ring. It was a close fight, but you took a lot of damage, and you came to the after hours to get your steak, and you had these two black eyes that you couldn't even see out of. And I was thinking to myself, man, this guy can take a beating and keep ticking. So I knew Albright had a lot of experience, and he was an excellent fighter, and he had a good past, but I knew he was tailor-made for you. You're hungry because of certain injuries you had. It had been over a year since you'd competed, and training with Adam Ryan, you had some high-level guys to train with. So I was really surprised with the performance. Not surprised, but it was an exciting performance, and it was really good for your career, and I was really proud of that day.
Yeah, I knew Sean was a guy who'd come out, he would, he'd set a pace and he'd stick to it and he'd stay calm. I've been training really hard, and, actually 2 years off between fights, and, I really was able to grow a lot with that time off and recover from some bad injuries and really sort of come together more as a full mixed martial artist as opposed to just, having sort of a set stand-up game and a set ground game. I was really able to sort of mesh it all together, and I really been working a lot on getting back to my feet because Sean's a black belt, and I knew I could hit harder than him, and I just came out there and, we traded, and he ended up being on the back legs, and, I ended up capitalizing him with some good elbows and cut him up, and he's made him quit.
Yeah, it was actually a really exciting fight to watch. I've noticed that in a couple other fights, I thought you could have won for sure, but you've got this warrior spirit where sometimes you fall away from the game plan and you turn it into a slugfest, and instead of maybe using the kind of range and the abilities that you have because you're so well-rounded. In this fight, you really brought it together, and it led you to a title shot, was supposedly on September 11th against Jeremy Kennedy. I know Jay Kasani was very proud of your performance, and he offered you a title shot right away, but unfortunately Jeremy had a bad concussion and he deserved some time to recuperate. So you've got a new opponent, Mario Pereira. And could you explain a little bit about him and tell me about the Jeremy Kennedy injury and how you feel about not being a title shot?
Yeah, so, I didn't have much time right after the fight with Sean, and, I was planning on taking a couple weeks off just to recover from some injuries I had. But, a couple of days later, I got the call from Jay saying, hey, do you want the shot against Jeremy? And there's no way I'm going to turn down the title shot. So got right back into it, started working around my injuries, and, started getting the conditioning for 5 rounds. Everything was feeling good, back to 100%. I was doing 5-6 round shark tanks without, putting everyone else down and making them all tired without, still breathing fine at the end of it. Felt really good, and I got the call, so it was a bit of a letdown at that point, but he said, I got another opponent for you for October 17th, Mario Pereira, who's a really, really tough guy out of TriStar. He's only lost to Jeremy, and other than that, he's a strong wrestler, pretty stocky, pretty good striking, so, I got my work cut out for me, and but I feel like I got what it takes to beat this guy, and I can't wait to step in there and put on a show.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing that for sure. I'll definitely be up for that one. I'm glad that Jay Gosani found you another fight. He's always been fair to the fighters, and anytime I've dealt with him when we've brought fighters over and competed on his cards, he's always been really nice, and he's always taken care of everybody, and he always gets everybody fights. And so I'm glad that you're with the promotion and really excited about the future for you, for sure.
Yeah, I have nothing bad to say about Jay. He's been awesome to me, and one thing is they put on a lot of cards, which is huge in this industry. I mean, a lot of guys have a hard time finding fights, and the fact that Jay has got me 2 fights so quickly, I'm really happy with that, and I'm looking forward to moving forward with the promotion.
So you spoke a moment ago about how he's a stocky, strong wrestler type guy. Without giving away too much of your game plan, what do you think are really going to be instrumental in your keys to your victory?
Well, the nice thing about it is it's actually my game plan is very similar to with Jeremy. I mean, Jeremy, I know, likes to clinch and put pace defense a lot, and Mario, I know he's pretty strong, got a good strong shot, and he can probably try and take me down, though his striking's fine. I'm not really gonna try and predict too much of what he's gonna do, but I feel good everywhere. I'm not too worried. I'm going to go in there. All the fights always start on the feet. So I'm going to see how that goes and then just sort of go with it and see what works. And if I have to change my game plan midway through the fight, I'm good with that. Like I really feel like I'm a complete fighter now. I don't feel like there's anywhere I have any major holes. I'm happy on my back. I'm happy on top. I'm happy on my feet. I'm everywhere in between. My clinch game is huge. I'm good in the white. Guys twice my size are having an impossible time holding me on the fence. So, I just don't feel like there's anywhere that I have any holes that he's going to be able to capitalize on. I think I'm just going to outwork him and, hopefully have my hand raised at the end. Mario's a really tough guy, so I see it probably going into the later rounds and hopefully I can wear on him. I'm looking to finish him, but see what happens.
So if it does, in fact, go to the later rounds, then do you think you're going to have the advantage that you are coming off another fight camp? You're going back to back. You never really had too much time out of the gym, so your cardio is going to be there?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like my cardio is feeling so good. Like I said, I'm doing shark tanks for 5 and 6 rounds, and I can't even really push myself to get that tired. And I'm like, I'm loose, I'm comfortable, and everything is just natural. I'm flowing with everything. And, the pace I'm putting on these guys, like I said, I'll have 3 guys in a round and they'll all be exhausted at the end of 1 round. And I'm going through 5 rounds, 6 rounds, and I'm still breathing fine, moving well, thinking, not dropping my hands, so I really feel good about this.
Yeah, we're just before we let you go, we know you got to get to work and everything. It's great to have you on the show. We just wanted you to tell us in a few words what your experiences are with one of your really, really good friends, Matt Kaiser, who just won the Bulgarian World Jiu-Jitsu Combat Championships, and just wondering how you trained with him and how that helped you in your career, if you can give us a little bit of insight on that.
Oh, Matt is awesome. Like, I've known Matt for a long time, and we've had tons and tons of rounds together. And when he first came to Ari's gym years ago, I used to beat him up all the time, and now when we're grappling, it's sort of switching the other way. He's so technical and so tight and smooth. If he gets a hold of something, he's taking it home. And so my number one thing when I roll with Kaiser is don't let him get a hold of anything. Stop him before he can get started. It's easier said than done with him. And he's also just such a nice guy, and I'm really proud of him, see how far he's come. And I know he's battled a lot of injuries, and it's really impressive to see where he's gotten to.
All right, so Tristan, before we let you go, we're going to end it on a bit of a lighter note here. So you've got the nickname Boondock. Where does that come from?
As a teenager, my favorite movie was Boondock Saints. And so my walkout music is what I've always used as the opening song to that. And Darren Owen from back was the promoter AFC, he gave me the nickname because he liked the song that it came out to so much. It just kind of stuck, and that's where it comes from.
I like the backstory. All right, man, we're looking forward to your next upcoming fight here, and hopefully you can string a couple big wins together and bring that title back to Victoria in 2016.
Thanks. Good talking to you guys. Thanks a lot.
All right, we're going to take another short break, and when we return, we're going to get back to some stories making waves around the MMA world. And don't forget, later in the show, we'll be talking with newly crowned Combat Wrestling World Champion Matt Kaiser. Don't go anywhere. Combat Sports Live will be right back.
Shit is tough, but fuck it, that's the way that life is. And I've been known to show my history of violence, but nowadays up on the mic is where my mind lives, falling down this black hole and I ain't seen the light since. People say I ain't the same just like I used to be, and I just say damn, well you better get used to me. Try and talk but nothing ever getting through to me, trying to make it on my own, man, where the feeling's nothing new to me. Gotta go make a change, really wanna go and make it tonight. All alone with the back to the wall, every day feel like I'm needing to fight. But I pray to God that He keeps me straight, cause I got big dreams in my life. Never really had shit but a dream and a voice that said go get what is mine. Catching myself looking up to the sky, got me thinking about what I'ma do. So I sit back, relax with this glass in my hand, wash away all the thoughts of you was KY.
So long and so wrong. Now where do we go from here? Roadblock, gotta hold on. Where do we go from here? I was born in the struggle, and now trouble always got a way of finding me. Down and out, so we hustle, trying to double up.
All right, we are back and diving right into some stories making waves around the world of MMA.
All right, so we're going to move on to Bellator Dynamite 1. What a card. 4 fighters in the tournament style. Obviously, King Mo dropped out, but that style was very intriguing to me as a fight fan. I really enjoyed the show.
I thought it was incredible. A lot of guys had some stuff to prove. There was some headline matchups. We had some ex-UFC fighters who are ex-champions, like Strikeforce champion Josh Thompson, who lost a lot of really close fights, and he was at the bottom of the card, and it was actually a really good night of fights.
Yeah, absolutely. You spoke about Josh Thompson. What a finish with that arm triangle. He had him tapping quickly, that's for sure. And I'm really happy to see him. Hopefully that it sounds like that may have been one of his last cards because he's certainly on the way out in terms of retirement, but what a way to finish it was.
Yeah, I have to agree. I mean, Josh Thompson's a really nice guy. I had a chance to one of my training partners and head coach, Jason Hayden, ended up fighting in the Maximum Fighting Championships in Edmonton. And Josh had come down with his training partner, Trevor Prangley. He was fighting Emmanuel Newton for the 205 championship. And we hung out with Josh for like 3 days. And he just looks like an average guy, dude. He just wears a t-shirt, jeans, high tops. He looks like some guy that would be like a skater outside. You wouldn't even think anything of him. But the guy's like a world-class MMA fighter. So it's great to see him have that kind of experience and see that look in his face afterwards and address the fans in his hometown, San Jose, and get that everything he deserved out of Friday, Saturday night.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm actually really happy to see Bellator moving this direction because they definitely are developing, they're slowly developing, but they're developing a wealth of talent. There was a lot of depth on this card. You said it yourself with Josh Thompson being on the lower end of the card. It was stacked all the way up in the tournament itself with King Mo and Vassell, Emmanuel Newton, and not to mention the main event between Liam McGeary and obviously Tito Ortiz. But a really stacked card all the way through, and I was impressed. And but although I'm not surprised with the outcome of the winner, Phil Davis, I believe, is just on another level, and I'm really looking forward to his next matchup with one of my other really favorite fighters in Liam McGeary. I think it's gonna be a tough matchup.
I totally agree. And the one thing I do have to not put the UFC down is the fact of their level of competition, because these guys, Nick Diaz was undefeated in Strikeforce and was their champion, and then came over to UFC and lost 3 straight fights. Phil Davis had lost a few fights in a row and wasn't able to get in championship contention. John Thompson, although there were close fights, lost 3 in a row. So as far as competition level goes, why is the UFC still way above and number one when it comes to great athletes and great competitors?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm gonna have to agree with you on that, and I think any knowledgeable fight fan would have a hard time disagreeing that. But at the same time, we're talking about entertainment, and I think that Bellator is doing a fine job putting on new events just like this that are keeping the fans entertained. So if that's what it takes to develop the sport even further and get the recognition of these NFL and NBA associations, then so be it. I think that there's definitely room at the top for more than one organization, and Bellator is doing a fine job. And I think that a lot of that has to do with Scott Coker taking over from Bjorn Rebney. I think he's doing a great job, and he's got a great mind for the sport.
Oh, I have to agree. Scott Coker's amazing. All his fighters love him. They like all his ideas, and it's a pleasure for them to come and sign there. And that just brings back another topic of the fact that Bellator doesn't have an exclusive deal with Reebok or some company. So the fighters are actually making more money on their shorts and their banners and their interviews, and it's actually hurting mixed martial arts as far as pro levels here in Victoria and Canada and BC and everywhere, because big corporate sponsors look at a fighter and they say, okay, this guy's going to be good. If we sponsor him now, he wants to get to the UFC. When he gets there, we can't sponsor him anymore. So now these big corporations aren't spending the money, aren't looking at sponsoring MMA fighters, because they know when they make it big, their sponsorships will be void. So I just feel sorry for a lot of young kids and a lot of athletes that are doing really well that aren't going to be able to get the sponsorship money they need to continue in the sport, pay their rent, help their families, pay their mortgages.
Yeah, definitely. So you said it yourself that it's definitely, there's a home for places like Bellator and WSOF. They can't always, not everybody can be in the, the elite of the elite, but it's a great platform, and they're putting on some really entertaining fights. And it seems like a bit of a theme in terms of UFC fighters that have gone to Bellator. I don't know if it's something that they're putting in the Kool-Aid there, but everybody seems to be really resonating with this attitude of they're being treated really well. They're being paid more than they were getting paid there in the UFC. So, a lot of happy fighters from the UFC now in Bellator, and it doesn't seem like they're going to be going anywhere.
And I have to agree, and I think they also talked to Scott Coker about who they can fight next, and they're given a phone call and said, hey, listen, Phil, do you want to fight in this tournament? Hey, Josh, do you want to fight this guy? How does that feel to you? Let's work together, rather than getting a call and saying you're fighting in 3 days or you're fighting in 3 weeks. Or promising Misha Tate even before she fought Jessica Ai, she was the number one contender. After you beat Jessica Ai, this is the number one contender spot. You guaranteed a shot with Ronda Rousey. I heard those words out of Dana White's mouth. Then she gets up one morning without even a phone call from the organization, and she's told that she's not fighting Ronda. And to me, it's ridiculous. Miesha Tate was making between $60,000 and $70,000 a fight with sponsorships. Her last fight with Reebok against Jessica, she made $7,500. To just get treated financially like that and to get treated with promises like that, if she could bust out of her contract and start a 145-pound division in Bellator, Cyborg signs there, it would be huge for Bellator. And the UFC is losing out on a lot of stuff. You can't treat athletes like that in any sport.
No, exactly right. And you know what? Another interesting point to that is the fact that what I've heard from other fighters, and most recently Ben Fodor said, even if he were to lose his next fight coming up here, that he was told by Bellator officials that, even if you lose 2 straight, you're not in any danger of being cut. You might need to take some time off, retrain but before we bring you back. But, his head doesn't really feel like it's on the chopping block. When you're in the UFC, God forbid you lose 3 straight, it's all over. You know what I mean? You're knocked down and hopefully you can scrape your way back to the top, but who knows? So a lot of guys, they're fighting scared in that respect, but the Bellator doesn't really, treat them like that. And so I think we're seeing some better performance as a result. However, I want to talk about Ben Fodor for a second. So anybody who doesn't know Ben Fodor, he is Phoenix Jones, YouTube Phoenix Jones. He's a crime fighter. I think I might have actually talked to him about him on episode 2 or something. Really interesting guy. Absolutely anybody who wanders the streets in a full-on superhero outfit fighting crime has my respect. But came off a really tough loss in his Bellator outing, but was brought back without any hesitation, and he came out with another really big win. It was an interesting finish. If anybody has seen the replay of it, it was almost like a scissor lock on the guy's neck. Obviously from the bottom. I don't know how to explain it, but a big finish from an interesting guy.
100%, and I'm really happy for the guy. It was great to see him in there. And one thing I say about the guy, he had amazing conditioning.
Yeah.
I got to give respect for that, the guy, for the hard work, because he was throwing down with Young, was his opponent. They were throwing down hard on the ground along the cage. He ended up finishing him, and he just got up. He had so much energy even after that round. So the guy's got a lot of heart, and it was nice to see him pull out the victory.
Definitely. He is, a crime fighter and a bit of humanitarian, and he's a guy to look up to. And there's an interesting connection here between Ben Fodor, who's walks the streets serving the public. Our own Keith Nadasen here in studio did the exact same thing. Keith, I heard a rumor at the gym the other day. You saved a lady's wife right outside. Tell me what happened.
Well, I think that's being overstretched. Basically,
you're too modest.
I was just sitting at the front desk, and I heard this little smash, and I guess not a lady, a 30-year-old woman was driving by, and I guess she was choking on an apple. And unfortunately, she hit my car as she was trying to pull over. She was choking on the apple. She was trying to pull over, and she just clipped the fender and the taillight of my car. And someone said, somebody hit a car, and I ran outside, and she was falling out of her car. So I just helped her get out of the car and gave her a little bit of the Heimlich, and then she spat out the apple. So I don't really necessarily know it was from anything I did, but it was just a good experience, and people are saying a lot of nice stuff, but I'm just glad she's okay, and it's only a car, and insurance is going to pay for it, and so it's not a big deal to get excited about.
Yeah, right. You are too humble. You saved that woman's life. You and Ben Fodor are side by side, saving the world, fighting crime, helping people out. Pretty amazing stuff.
Thank you.
All right, now moving on from Ben Fodor and some news from the WSOF, we're going to move on back to the UFC for some upcoming matchups that are definitely making waves and are pretty interesting. One of them that came to mind for me was Ronda Rousey's next title defense against Holly Holm. I feel like is a little bit early for Holly. I'm really happy for her, to be receiving this title shot so early in her career, but it is just that. It might be too early. And I know there's some other people that are upset for different reasons, one of them being Miesha Tate.
Yeah, I just it's kind of sad to see the way Miesha Tate's being bullied and pushed around by the UFC. Same with Sarah Kaufman. I think their value has been diminished by the quality of athletes and the quality of fighters that they are. They've got amazing heart. They come out, they'll fight anybody, and they're being used in a separate way. Holly Holm's undefeated right now. They keep going on about she's a 9-time world boxing champion. Does anybody know any of the people that she won any of those world championships with? Who are they sanctioned by? We just keep hearing this story She doesn't have the takedown defense. I mean, Marion Renault didn't push it the way she should have. She's not a wrestler. She's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner. So Marion Renault needs to be on her back or be in a dominant Jiu-Jitsu position. She couldn't get her there. And I don't know about you, but if you wanted to, I would bet any money with anybody that Misha Tate would destroy Holly Holm. But of course, she's getting pushed back. She doesn't have a fight coming up. She's been made all these promises once again, and Holly Holm's going for the fight. But in a way, it's a smart move by the UFC because they want to sell out that 50,000 person stadium in Australia. They want to break the Canadian, George St. Pierre's Canadian record, and they knew they had to have a big splash. And even though Misha's lost twice, Holly Holm's an undefeated fighter. She's taller, longer. It brings them a little bit of hype, and that's what's going to happen. And Ronda knows she's had some boxing experience, so Ronda's going to be a little more careful. So this fight might go a little bit longer because Ronda's not going to rush in there. She's going to use footwork and head movement and look for her shot, but she's going to get her arm before the end of the first round, and that fight's going to be done.
Yeah, exactly. I think this is really just a case of the UFC striking while the iron is hot, and that is because Holm has been on a tear. She's been undefeated. She's been in the UFC, but a lot of those, are unremarkable wins. They're not big knockout finishes that we expected from the Golden Gloves champion. They're these lackluster wins, and I don't really think that it has earned her a title shot. But obviously, we understand where the angle the marketing machine is coming from. So who am I to disagree? But all right, moving on from Holm and Rousey, because we're going to have lots to talk about that in the future. There's just, too many headlines there to ignore. Let's talk about some other upcoming ones that are pretty interesting. Let's talk about TJ versus Dominic, and let's just hope Dominic can stay healthy.
I'm really looking forward to it. I think he is. I think he's waiting until January. Dominic Cruz is one of the smartest fighters in UFC history. He's going to be an incredible coach. I'm sure he'll own his own gym one day. And those 2 knee surgeries, they were devastating. Was it 3 now, or is it maybe even 4? I mean, the injuries, it's sad and it hurts for him. But he still hasn't lost in the octagon. He's still the WEC 135-pound champion. Came over, defended that belt, and won a couple of things, and then got these injuries. He's still a champion. He's still a great fighter. I think TJ Dillashaw is a little bit smaller. I think he's tailor-made for Dominic Cruz. I mean, TJ's training with Ludwig, but I see him have lots of energy and some really good techniques, and he throws kicks off punches and good level changes, but I don't see the boxing footwork. I see him bouncing around. I don't see him having an absolutely great chin. I see Dominic Cruz fully healthy winning that fight.
Yeah, and that's it, right? And that's the caveat to the whole thing. Will he be healthy? That's what's going to define this fight. But it's interesting stylistically because Dominic and TJ, some of the most next to maybe Demetrius Johnson, some of the biggest advantage in mobility that I've ever seen. The way that these guys move in and out and just the pace that they hold is incredible. But they're almost mirror images of each other. But you're definitely right. You hit the nail on the head with Dominic. I think Dominic holds the more powerful shots. He's got no knock on TJ's boxing because obviously he's done leaps and bounds with Ludwig, but I just think Dominic is just too seasoned. He's got the power and he's got the technique.
Yeah, I think you're right. I just like the way Dominic moves laterally. Just the way he moves laterally is just really amazing. How he slips and how he sees punches coming, and I just think he's the better fighter. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, exactly. And time will tell who comes out on top. Once again, let's just hope Dominic stays healthy. Okay, moving on from TJ and Dominic, let's talk about something else that has just been, making headlines the last few months, I think actually, which is this bit of an early retirement bug has been catching up with some people this year. And it also coincides with another headline that's been making waves recently, which is that of, not wearing headgear when you're training. So what I'm talking about in terms of the early retirements is earlier this year, we had Jordan Meehan retire at the age of 26. He's only coming off a single loss. And before that, he strung together, I think, maybe 3 or 4 solid wins. And really young guy and, comes from a combat family. His father was just a Canadian legend in combat sports. But yeah, Jordan decided to hang him up at 26. And then less than, I think, just over a month ago, Frankie Perez, coming off a massive finish, one of the best fights of his career, only at the age of 25, also decides to hang them up. So these guys, right at the peak of their career with, right as they're about to make the big money, have decided to, call it quits, which I don't understand, maybe necessarily from the standpoint that we still have these the other flip side of this coin is the legends that are still here. So Mir, Barnett, Arlovsky, all of these guys, Mir's been in the sport for 14 years. He's only 36. Barnett has been in the sport for 18 years. He's only 36. And Arlovsky, he has been in for 16 years and he's 37. So all these guys, they've been in it since the beginning, since the inception, where it really started to take off, and they're still in it. Not only that, they're still relevant. So, it seems like maybe some of the science and some of the really unfortunate the health risks are what's putting Perez and Mian, it's getting them to think that maybe this is not the direction they want to go, and they're really putting their health before anything else, which who am I to say is the wrong way to go?
I have to agree. I just don't think the financial numbers there are there for someone to spend another 10 years in there making, 15 and 15 a fight. I mean, you could fight once every 6 months and that's 30 grand. I mean, your outside sponsorships are gone now because these companies aren't going to spend the money to sponsor you when they can't be represented on the big stages. And for a guy like Jordan Mina, if you look back at his career, I mean, the guy, how many fights has he had? He's had like 35 or 36 pro MMA fights. So it's not always about your age. It's about how much time you spent in the octagon. Another gentleman we had on the show, John Alessio, an amazing performer, had over 50 pro MMA fights. He's just in his 30s, early 30s, and he's considering retiring. Maybe he won't. I don't think he should, but definitely it's about the amount of time and the amount of wars you spent in that cage, and people should have a lot of respect for the time these guys have spent in there.
Yeah, exactly right. And talk about respect for the time these guys have put in there. Guys like Pedro Hizo. So Pedro just announced after a big win that he's hanging them up. But Pedro's 41 years old and he's been in it for 19 years. Like he's got nothing else left to prove in this sport. And what I love about the Pedro Hizo story, he started his career with leg kicks and he finished his career with these trademark leg kicks. A guy like him, he's got nothing. He's got nothing more to prove, and he's really going out, the way of a fighter on his shield. So, come finishing with a big win, which is nice to see. But other guys like Joe Dirksen retired recently as well at 38. He's been at it for 16 years. Minotauro Nogueira, obviously more notably name-wise, just retired recently as well at 39 years after being in the sport for 16 years. See, these are the stories that make me realize, you guys, you've paid your dues. You have nothing else to prove. 39, 38, 35, whatever. This seems like an appropriate time to finish. But for people like Mian and Perez, it's just not for them anymore. And we wish them the best.
Yeah, I totally have to agree. Pedro Hizo, if those of you who don't know him in the younger world, amazing fighter, excellent Thai boxer, excellent Dutch-style kickboxer as well, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. I mean, the guy's been around since the early UFCs, fought the who's of who, Randy Couture twice, Barnett twice, everybody. Like, just look back at the list of who was in their prime back in those days, and Pedro fought him all. So it's nice to see him right off into the sunset with his health, and deserves a lot of respect.
Exactly. That's the way to do it. Couldn't have said it better myself. All right, moving on from that retirement news, let's talk about this one last thing. It's been chomping it. I've been chomping them a bit to talk about, and it's just been frustrating me because I don't really understand. Which is Paige Van Zandt. I love her to death. I think she's up and coming, and I think she's a really exciting fighter, big cardio fighter, comes forward all the time. A lot of positives to talk about, and it's not her fault. But I don't understand why she's being rushed into a main event. I get it's not a title shot, but she's being rushed into a main event. She's fought 3 times in UFC, and she's headlining a card. She's getting the McGregor treatment, and I don't understand why.
Well, I think it's about the fact that she's a very popular fighter, and they want to get as much out of her as they can right now. I mean, the Fight Pass, the UFC's Fight Pass was a huge thing for them. It was $9.99 for everyone to sign up for a full year. You got to see all the fights, and then there were some obligations they had with Fox and other things that made them be able to prolong the shows being shown on Fight Pass. So now they have to give back to the fans, and I think in their way, they believe putting Paige on a main event and something exciting and somebody that's fought on a UFC main card can bring some hype and some stuff to that card.
Yeah, definitely. I guess we'll just have to see how it plays out. We'll have to see how the numbers at the gate stack up and the Fox numbers as well. But again, it's not a pay-per-view, but still, you're headlining a card, your third fight, or after just 3 fights in the UFC. So I think it's a little bit early, but all the power to her, I suppose.
I have to agree with you with the rushing. I mean, Paige has excellent conditioning. She's a dancer. Her fitness is amazing, maybe one of the best fitnesses in all of the women on all women's MMA. But the thing she doesn't really have is power in her hands, and her style is just to run at you and try to clinch you and knee you to the body. I think that's a bad mistake with Joanne Calderwood, who's had like 10 Muay Thai fights. She's taller. She's a big 115 pounder. She wants you to run into her clinch. She wants you to knee you to the body, and she's got heavier hands. So sometimes, you have great conditioning. That doesn't mean you can walk into people and have a war with people with more power than you and more experience. And unfortunately, you're right. She's being rushed in. Take your time. Don't put her on the main event. Let her develop those skills. And unfortunately, she's maybe not going to get a chance to develop them because she's getting thrown in there pretty fast.
So you think Calderwood's gonna, has the recipe to take her out?
I think Calderwood, after losing to Marina Moroza in Poland, had an eye-awakening experience and came back and fought on the Holloway, I believe the Holloway, or was it the Bisping undercard, the Bisping-Lightus undercard?
Yep.
And looked amazing. She had a warrior spirit. She's going off emotionally right now. She's charged up, so Paige could outlast her, but I think Joanne's ready for that.
Yeah, this is actually, I'm really looking forward to this matchup. Looks like Sean Shelby did really well to pit these two girls against each other, and it's going to be a really good test to see if Van Zandt really, has what it takes to, weather some big shots against a really tough Joanne Calderwood. All right, moving on from Van Zandt, we're going to get right back into some local news. I've heard there's another big fight coming to the Island MMA, Jim.
Yeah, we got a big show coming up from Stan Pederick and Jason Height, Island MMA and Pederick's Kickboxing, coming up on November 13th at the Perks Arena in Saanich. It's a kickboxing MMA / card. First time we've had MMA in Saanich since the early 90s. We've got a really glory style kickboxing amateur card. We've 5 Americans against 5 Canadians. We've got Tim Packer, Marco Caffiero, Siraj Bangar fighting Carl Hand for a world title. Carl Hand's from Irish, excellent fighter. We've got James Sebignana from Merge Fitness. He's coming in there looking for another victory after an amazing performance in his last fight at the Perks Arena. And we've got Greg Lamoth from Universal Martial Arts, I believe it is. And no, or maybe is it? I'm not sure what I forget the name. Sorry, Greg, but an excellent fighter. He's won a bunch in a row, and he was kind of in between. He had a couple of kids. He was kind of in between whether he wanted to take this competition to the next level, and now he's decided he's going to go for it. He's won a few fights in a row. He's looked amazing. So, and Jason Height has brought some MMA fights. We got Peter and Paul Lopez. Their masters are still undisclosed. Cody Sahlstrom. So we're going to have a great night of glory kickboxing and MMA fights.
Excellent. I think that's one where everybody wins. The fans are going to be in for a real treat and some fireworks, to say the least.
Okay, we're going to head into our last break of the show, and when we return, we're going to be speaking with a particular leg lock wizard who recently added a world title to his list of accolades. Don't go anywhere. Combat Sports Live will be right back.
Let's go. Roll it up, who riding with me? So my soul without signing the deed. Society deem me a menace. Beware the sign of the beast. Came up doing crime on the street. I speak my life on these beats. So light the weed and let me finally breathe a sigh of relief. Long way to go and the road ain't paved. Got a handful of pills. The devil grabbing the wheel while I'm trying to hold it straight. That's the hand I was dealt in this poker game. But I play my cards right where y'all is dumb enough to fold it straight. Since a young buck I've been holding my own. And since no one is home, it ain't hard to get a moment alone. But I swear I'm gonna be doing right. I'm gonna improve our lives, but that's just something easier said than done, like suicide. It's like I need a neck brace just to keep my head straight, cause I ain't got the rent paid and they just gave me 10 days. I'm about to let the tech spray. I'm putting y'all cats in check. Make my baby boy need a home and I ain't trying to see his address change.
So long, been so wrong. Now where do we go from here? Roadblock, gotta hold on. Where do we go from here? I was born in
All right, we have returned from our break, and we are happy to welcome back to the show Jiu-Jitsu ace, leg lock wizard, and all-around great guy, Matt Kaiser. Matt, thanks a lot for coming back on the show.
Yeah, it's great to be back, man.
Excellent. So let's get right down to, we got some big news coming down the pipe, man. You are officially the Combat Wrestling World Champion. First of all, how does that sound?
It sounds pretty awesome, man. Yeah, it was a great experience for sure.
Yeah, why don't you tell us a little bit about it? And you obviously came back from Bulgaria. Have you been there before?
No, I've never been to Bulgaria. So first of all, you had to win your way onto the world team. So I was involved in the national trials, which took place in Montreal. And that was, I believe, I want to say 22nd of May, around there. And so I trained really hard for that. I trained from about March into May. And then I won the national trials. I had the opportunity to fight on Team Canada. And then, so yeah, it was just a lot of heavy training until August 22nd. And then Bulgaria is beautiful. I've never been there before. It was an amazing time. Great cities. I stayed in Golden Sands. The competition took place in a town called Varna, and we had a few days in Sofia. It was an amazing time, amazing trip.
So did it all play out the way you were expecting, or how was the overall experience for you?
Well, I didn't. As a competitor, you always want to train like you're training for the gold medal, but like I said, you had to win a national trials to get on the Team Canada and every team. So every guy was a national champion. So the caliber of fighters was very high for this tournament. There's nobody that just kind of walked in off the street for this one. So, it was definitely my toughest challenge to date. And yeah, it could have gone a lot of different ways, but luckily, I put a lot of hard hours into training this time, and I was just, working on my wrestling every day, working on my jiu-jitsu, trying to strengthen the best parts of my game and build up the weakest parts. And, I took it really, really seriously. It was a big 6-month commitment that paid off.
Yeah, it's really amazing, Matt. I know you're a very modest guy, and you're pretty thankful to everybody involved, but the real story here is you defeated in the original preliminaries Team Mata head coach with an ankle lock, and then put to sleep UFC, Bellator, and Tough Alignment, and second-degree black belt Rolly Delgado, who I've seen compete a couple of times before, and the guy is literally amazing. So I was just really proud to see you accomplish that feat. I mean, it must have been an amazing experience afterwards to put that gold medal around your neck and realize that this is what you got into this sport for, and to get to the pinnacle of it must have been an incredible experience.
Yeah, the caliber of guys like you talked about, the Team Malta head coach and Rolly Delgado, like these guys are, pretty great grapplers, great athletes, and yeah, it's funny, I've told the story now a few times, but I was getting ready for the Worlds, and I knew all my opponents because it's all published, who won the national trials and whatnot, so I knew more than likely, if things went well, I would probably have to face Rolly Delgado. So I was really training for Rolly and breaking down his game. And one day I'm in bed, and my roommate sends me a Facebook post. He's like, "Dude, you got to see this guy. He's killing, and you'll really appreciate his technique." And he sent me a video of Rolly Delgado, and I just laughed because he had no idea that was the guy I was facing. But that's how it went. So yeah.
On top of that, too, you had, I'm not sure if you can disclose it, but I know you went into that match with a serious injury and you didn't want to miss the experience. Can you talk to us a little about that, about the pain you felt and what the injury might be, if you could?
Yeah, so I had an ankle injury. I've had an ankle injury for quite a while now. It's been rehabbing for like over a year. So popped out about a year ago in tournament, and that wasn't good. And then after the national trials, I was competing and it popped out again. So that was about 8 weeks out before the tournament. And then I was getting in some hard training the week before the tournament and it popped out again. So, it's just, at that point I was very upset because, I'd invested 6 months of my life into, training these rules and visualizing, going to Bulgaria and winning and, representing my country properly. And yeah, I hurt my ankle again, and I was just, I was a mess. I called my girlfriend up, just like sobbing, which sounds stupid, but it was just you put so much work into something, and for it to kind of go away like that right at the end, right at the final stretch, it was. And I'd already overcome a lot of other things in the camp. Like I won the national trials with a broken hyoid, with the bone in your throat. And it was just this last hiccup at the end of the road. It was devastating. It was devastating. Like I thought, like this was my moment. This could be my moment, and for it to be taken away at the end was just it was a sickening feeling.
It's really quite incredible, to have the experience that you've had, from when you came into the game. We're talking to your really, really good friend and training partner, Tristan Boondock Connelly. We just had an interview with him a few seconds ago, and he talked about the fact that when you first came in, you weren't that athletic, and you came into Ari's club down in the Fort Street area, and that he said he was throwing you around, and then he said within 6 months, all of a sudden things had changed, and he didn't know, your technique and your intelligence and your ability to transition and stuff like that was so amazing that he's hard to believe that you learned stuff that quickly.
Yeah, well, no, when I started, Tristan was doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu before I was doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I'd done a lot of Japanese Jiu-Jitsu, so I was still trying to figure out all the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu tricks when I got into it, because, if you're not training Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and you're not ready for the attacks being thrown at you, then, there's nothing like BJJ, like in terms of mounting a solid submission offense. So yeah, it took me a few months, but yeah, Tristan and I finally got some more competitive roles in. Tristan, when I started, Tristan could trounce me for sure.
All right, we're going to fast forward a little bit to something that's making waves on the headlines these days, which is the new series of Tough. So the new Ultimate Fighter series. We heard that you have a local connection there. You want to tell us about it?
Well, yeah, I was just monitoring the progress of Ryan Hall. Ryan Hall is one of a legend in BJJ as far as what he's done to develop. He's done, multiple DVDs, mostly on the most famous would be probably the 50-50 position, which is a very famous position in Jiu-Jitsu. It's just like a double, like it's a non-advantageous position for either player, but the person who masters that position is kind of always at the position of offense. And then the triangle he's developed, extensively. He's got a 3-part DVD on one move, which is insanity. So I was very excited to see him compete in the Ultimate Fighter, and I wanted to see him do well. I know he's been training with Riley Bodycomb, who I'm a big fan of. I'm a big fan of his. Riley's known for his leg locks, and clearly you can see that it's been paying off, because Ryan Hall's now 2 fights deep, and he's got 2 heel hook victories, and that's amazing. It's just so important for jiu-jitsu, because a lot of people kind of crap on jiu-jitsu these days and say like, it's jiu-jitsu's kind of dead, the guard's dead. Now that everybody knows some of the defense to BJJ, it's kind of the dead art. But we don't have guys at the top level representing us in Brazilian or in MMA right now. So Ryan Hall is one of those guys who can represent at a very high level. And, it's already kind of showing right now.
Yeah, I really have to agree with that. I think Jiu-Jitsu is making a bit of a comeback. I mean, if we saw the performance on the weekend from Lee McGreary against Tito Ortiz, a veteran that's been on top and side mount for almost 19 years, being in the first in UFC and UFC 13, now in Bellator. And Lee McGreary submitted him with a triangle and had a bunch of submission attempts during that fight. So I think Jiu-Jitsu is making a bit of a comeback, and it's really great to see Ryan Hall on the show. It's a great exposure for Jiu-Jitsu, because obviously it's the Conor McGregor, Uriah Faber are the 2 coaches in the show. So it's getting the most hits at Fox, and a lot of people are really enjoying it. And, like you said, Ryan Hall was amazing. 2 first-round ankle lock submissions, and he told us afterwards that that's not even his best move, and we got to get ready because he's got other stuff to show us.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. And I mean, there's other guys doing it. You got, Ruzamar, if they're going to let him continue fighting. You've got Jacare, Damian Maia. There's a lot of really high-level jiu-jitsu guys, but, it's important we get more out there. And it's starting. Lovato's put in his hat in MMA, Braulio Sima. So there's a lot of guys that, nobody's really heard about yet, but, hopefully this will inspire more, top-level Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guys to start entering MMA and bringing back the fear in the BJJ players.
Yeah, absolutely. And I hate to bring it up because it's not obviously the best look for the sport, but I do want to get your thoughts on the awkward finish between Husmar Palhares and Jake Shields. Was this another case of him not quite letting go in time, or how do you fall on this side of it?
You know what? I am Rusmar's biggest fan, maybe still his biggest fan. But he's getting it. He's making it very hard to defend him. You know, after repeated offenses over and over and over again. And even as a fan, I'm getting really tired of it because there's no need for it, right? There's no need for somebody to tap you for, 2 seconds to let go of a submission. You know right off the bat. If you watch any of my matches, I'm always letting go. I try and give my opponent as much of a window to tap as possible, and then while I'm doing the move, I know it's on, so I'm anticipating letting go. Like I'm cranking maybe to submit my opponent, but at the same time, my body says, oh, okay, well, I know this is in tight. I need to be ready to let it go. So you can't. It's too late. And if you're still cranking when your opponent's tapping, that's just, there's no need.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think some of the original defense was the fact that, he was just trained that way. And, when they're in training camp or when they're working on these positions, it's not the same. But I was listening to a quote by John Fitch the other day saying that, he's never going to walk the same again after fighting Balharas. Like he has a permanent limp. So obviously we can't be having these types of situations where, these are lasting effects on a, high level fighter's career.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, like you put your body on the line every time you step into the ring or the cage or the mats or whatever, and you compete. So there should be a level of respect that doesn't seem to be there where you're taking care of the other person, respect the other person enough to take care of them. And it seems like he's missing that or he's lost that or, something needs to happen. Like a sports psychologist needs to come in there and help him figure it out.
Yeah, no, for sure. Can you tell us a little bit, not to change subject, but can you tell us a little bit about Tristan Connelly? He's going to be fighting here in October, and we talked to him about your training partners together and what you think of his performances and what do you think's up for him next and what do you think where do you think he's going in the sport?
Yeah, well, he had a title fight lined up. And unfortunately that fell through. I was very impressed with his last fight. I was actually in a wedding in Boston when he had his last fight, and I kind of snuck out of the wedding and loaded it up on the computer and just kind of sat there and, family's all walking around and stuff. And yeah, I made sure somebody sent me the link without any spoilers or anything because I wanted to watch it. And it was very impressive, Tristan's got a very tough black belt. Got in some very bad positions, and was able to kind of work it out like heart of a warrior, was able to get out of those tough positions and come back and pull off an incredible win. So, Tristan, if you've never trained with Tristan, you don't know how much heart he has because it doesn't matter. You could have him in the worst position possible, but, you kind of have to kill him to stop him, right? He just will not quit. Like he has no quit in him.
Yeah, that's what we were talking about earlier on the show. Having the ability to cage side commentate 5 of his pro MMA fights and being at the after hour parties and seeing him come in with the kind of damage he had and just being normal. It was just, you're right, it's pretty amazing. And
yeah, I watched him fight and he separated his collarbone at the beginning of the round and he finished like he went the whole rest of the round. Like who does that? You know what I mean? I stubbed my toe and I asked the ref for a 5-minute, like he's just unbelievable. Just does not stop. Energizer Bunny.
All right, I want to switch gears a little bit here and maybe talk about some things that have been making waves lately. Bellator's unique one-night tournament. How do you feel about, the Dynamite event itself and what it means for the sport and just overall?
Yeah, unfortunately, I was out of town and I was visiting with some friends and family, but I went to a bar and I kind of was watching the event out of the corner of my eye the entire night. And there's some good fights. Phil Davis obviously did very well. I was impressed with King Mo too. King Mo. I was worried he was going to punch himself out in the first round. Like he just was thrown with everything, trying to get that quick tournament, one victory. So you don't have to be all sluggish going into the second fight. And I don't know what happened to King Mo. I haven't heard, but he won his fight, but he didn't make it out for the rest of the tournament.
Yeah, it was a rib injury, unfortunately.
Oh, it was a rib injury, huh? Okay. Yeah, but no, he had a great fight,
Vassell hit him with some real brutal body shots, body kicks, and you could hear them, and you could see Mo wince. He didn't want to let the rest of the audience know, but I almost felt like I heard a crack.
Yeah, no, it's no good. I mean, and that's why you don't have tournaments, because so much can go wrong. But I'm glad they're doing it. I really enjoy the tournament format.
Especially for monsters like that, like those guys are like 225, 230 by fight time. You're looking at Linton Vassell, you're looking at Phil Davis, Mo Lawal, and Emmanuel Newton, like just 4 big, strong guys that are trying to compete twice in a night. It's really unheard of at this stage of MMA as we know it.
Yeah, well, at least in the States, yeah, for sure. Yeah, and it's too bad because Varga was supposed to be on that card, wasn't he, Gabe Varga?
Yes, he was. I think his opponent got injured. It would have really been really good for him to get out there and compete in front of all his hometown, right? Because Spike Television is a local show here that we all get in Canada. So it would have been nice for Gabriel to get out there and have a chance to perform in front of his local audience. But he'll be back. I'm sure they're going to do another show, and we'll get to see him go again soon.
Yeah. No, it's good to see him get the exposure too that he deserves. Like, that guy's been killing it for a long time.
So I want to get your thoughts on another theme that we've been talking about over this show so far, which is that of there's been a little bit of news being made lately of some early retirements. Obviously, Jordan Meehan was earlier on in the year retired at 26, which is unique coming from his family background. With obviously his dad's just like a Canadian legend, and then we had Frankie Perez. I think was in August. He retired at 25 after a big victory. And then on the flip side of this coin, we're seeing guys that like Mir, Barnett, and Arlovsky who've been, fighting anywhere from 14 to 16 years at the highest level, and they're still going strong and they're still relevant. So coming from a guy like yourself who trains mostly in jiu-jitsu, the non-contact side of it, what do you make of this? You think they're just seeing better opportunities for themselves, or do you thinking that they're just worried about their long-term mental health?
Well, it's definitely the health. I actually didn't know that Jordan Meehan retired, and wow, that's crazy. He's a great fighter. What I will say, like the therapist in me, like I'm always interested in kind of brain injury and how the brain works and stuff like that. So what I've kind of heard is the reason, like you talk about the guys like Arlovsky and Frank Mir, and those are the guys that are sticking around because, and it basically comes down to like the heavyweights are the ones that are able to keep their careers going longer generally, which sounds kind of counterintuitive. But I think one of the big reasons is because of the weight cutting. Because when you do the weight cutting, you are dehydrating your entire body, and that also includes your brain, right? So usually there's a bit of fluid in there to kind of help keep your brain from slamming into the sides of your head, right? So the other fail-safe is something called fascia. So you have a bunch of fascia inside your brain. It's basically a spider web that connects your brain to your cranium. So when you get rocked and there's no fluid, that fascia stretches to the point where it can't stretch anymore. It just kind of tears. And once that fascia tears, you can't replenish it. It doesn't heal. It's just gone, right? So when you cut the weight, you don't have that second mechanism in there to kind of stop your brain from flopping around. And then once you rip that fascia, like once you get a bad knockout, then it's really tough to come back from. He's a great fighter, Canadian fighter, Nick Denis. I think he's from Ottawa. I'm pretty sure he's from Ottawa. I believe he was fighting Marlon. Yeah, he was fighting Marlon Sandro, I believe. And got a really bad knockout. And I'm pretty sure that was his only loss that I can remember. Came in the UFC, had a great debut. Beautiful. Yeah.
The standing elbows?
Yeah, he did the standing elbows. He did a choke slam before that to get into the UFC. Like, the guy was nuts. And I don't know if he lost the fight or whatever, but he was just like, yeah, I'm done. And it seems very odd. You take your whole career to finally get to this, monumental platform, and then you call it quits. Well, that's why. It's because the guys who know about brain tissue and what's going on in their body. Like it definitely takes a toll on you. Like I did a very, very, very brief stint in MMA, and I can remember going home and just, you taste the metallic on your tongue, and you have trouble sleeping, and I'm wearing headgear. It's part of the sport though, unfortunately. Like it's not ballet. Like you're going into a cage and you're striking with a trained killer. Like that's part of the sport, unfortunately. There's nothing you can really do to change it other than, like now there's some commissions, I think. I know it was Arkansas, and I'm trying to remember the other one, if it was Calgary or California. I think it might be California. They've actually come out with some new weight cutting laws, and I'm not entirely familiar, but I know it has something to do with they weigh you during the weigh-in, and then they weigh you the day of, and if you weigh over, I forget whether it's 10 or 15%, then the fight's off, which is kind of groundbreaking. I don't know all the details. I know some people are they're like, well, you're still going to have now 2 weight cuts, right? Or whatever, but I'd have to look into it a bit more. But there's definitely, people are starting to address the issue is the point that I'm trying to make.
Yeah, and there's definitely, different logic on both sides of the argument, but there was an interesting article on MMA Junkie recently about headgear reducing brain trauma, and there seems to be some solid science behind it, but a big part of the story was not all fighters are convinced of it. How do you find headgear plays into the whole argument, and what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I mean, I always trained with headgear when I did MMA, and I got kind of ostracized by different fighters, like, you don't need that, or bye, but it's definitely, I don't know, it's my personal choice. Some people say it's actually detrimental because you can take more shots that you wouldn't be able to take or whatever, but I was lucky to train with good partners who weren't trying to take my head off every practice. They just wanted to prepare me, right? And I think that's the difference is some of these camps you go to, like you hear about the, legendary shoot box battles and all this stuff where training was actually fighting instead. They didn't really do the whole, taking care of one another. They, sharpen iron with iron and just go full bore, right? And it's hard to argue with the success though, because a lot of those guys did well. Some other guys that did, almost the opposite. Some guys did very little sparring and they did very well too. So, I don't know. I don't think you have to, go full out every time. And, I definitely think headgear is a great idea. But, different coaches are going to give you different instructions.
I think that's a great point, of course. Headgear absorbs a little bit of the punishment. I mean, I know when we're training our guys, they know, we're not going to book fights and get you ready and spending time to get you energy. Like the main thing about headgear is to prevent cuts. Like at least one of the partners needs to be wearing headgear so when they clash heads on the inside, it doesn't open up a cut. Because we've seen it before and the guys do it. And I said, we told you to wear headgear, 3 stitches on your forehead, and now all that work you've done, it's down the tube. So, for very importantly, headgear is needed for that. And also the quality of sparring opponents you have. People have to take care of each other. Like you mentioned earlier, the old Pride days, those guys went nuts at the old shoot box, Shogun, Vanderlei, and then when they came over to the UFC, they realized there's a different way of fighting. I mean, Shogun couldn't handle the weight cut and all the sparring he's done. He burnt out really quickly, and Forrest Griffin took him out and ended up becoming the champion. And the same thing happened with Vanderlei Silva. And a lot of the guys had to learn and go back and almost learn the art of training again, and learn the art of dieting, and learn the art of taking care of your sparring partners, and only spar hard maybe once a week. And after that, they became successful again. Like Shogun came back and became the champion again, and Vanderlei won a few fights, but it took them some time. And you're totally right. The safety of your sparring partners is the most important thing.
Yeah, you're definitely right. Like Shogun did kind of get his rhythm once he started moving in there a bit. But yeah, like you get a really old body. Like I know Shogun had like 3 surgeries in a row for the same thing. I think he's got cadaver ligaments now and stuff like that. Like you can't keep throwing your body at a wall and expect it to be healthy. So, that's what happens to a lot of guys. And, luckily some of them can rebound from it, but others can't. And
All right, we know you're a busy guy. We're going to wrap it up here shortly. But before we do, I do want to get your thoughts on a couple upcoming matchups and how you think they're going to play out. So I'm just going to give you some names, and you give me your gut instinct, how you think it's going to play.
Sounds good.
So we got Holm and Rousey. Let's start at the top.
I don't think anybody's touching Rousey for a little bit. Yeah, I don't like. Obviously, Holly Holm's been fairly underwhelming in UFC. That's not to say she's not a great fighter, because she's obviously earned her spot. But yeah, Rousey's just, hasn't shown any weakness in a long time. So I'm definitely gonna get the edge to the champ.
All right, I like it. All right, and I'm going to wrap it up with the final one. This is the battle of mobility. TJ versus Dominic. Who's the real king?
TJ versus Dominic. Yeah, Dominic's only had one fight since the massive layoffs, right? It was Mizugaki, I believe.
It's Mizugaki, yep. Big finish.
Yeah, and he just killed it. He looked awesome. But, that was a very short fight, I don't think the fight's going to go one round. I think it's going to be a longer fight, and it's going to be kind of I don't think the question is what TJ shows up. I think the question is what Dominic shows up, because TJ's looked very stellar in his last few performances. If Dominic can come back and fight like he used to, there's no reason he doesn't take that fight. But there's so many uncertainties about, is Dominic going to be able to compete at that level again, for 5 rounds? Because that's what he'll need to do to beat Gil.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, I think conditioning for Cruz won't be the main aspect. I think it's more about how can his body hold up. I mean, what if he takes a kick to the knee or kick to the other knee? Will that break him down at all, or will that be enough to keep him going? So that's the uncertainty. But as far as conditioning goes, I think both these guys are going to be able to go 5. Like Dominic does in his training sessions, he does 5 10-minute rounds at the end of his session. So he's way prepared for his coming up title defense. But before we let you go, I just wanted to ask you about some of your sponsors and give us a general thing. Maybe give a shout out to a couple of your sponsors that helped you get to this level and helped you with your traveling, and maybe give them a shout.
Absolutely. So my sponsor, Dry World, is fantastic. They make the best gear, and I'm not just saying that because I'm sponsored by them, even though I would say it anyway if I was sponsored by it. But they have fantastic gear. It's amazing. Top quality, rash guard shorts for jiu-jitsu, and then just active wear in general. It's absolutely amazing. They're doing testing on it. They're making sure they're doing all the right things, and with their superior products. My gym, Pure Studio, everybody that helped me out on the island, everybody that's continuing to help me out. I really appreciate everyone for the support. And my team of therapists that work on me, couldn't do without them either.
Fantastic, man. So big things coming in 2016, later part of 2015 here. What are your goals for the immediate future?
The goals are ADCC trials coming up. I would like to make the next ADCCs 2 years from now. So that's the next game plan for sure.
I like it. Well, we're going to be looking forward to that for sure, man. Your name is definitely on the radar now, like it wasn't before. We're certainly looking forward to we're seeing your rise, and it is meteoric, my friend.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Matt. It's great to have you on the show. It's so great to have you on the show, and we'll be having you on again.
Thank you very much, and it was great to be on. We'll see you guys later, huh?
All right, that is going to do it for another episode of Combat Sports Live. Be sure to tune in next month when we welcome back a brand new batch of guests and get you back up to date in the world of combat sports. On behalf of myself and my co-host Keith Nadasen, we'll catch you next time.
Lifestyle got me all fucked up. If you think I'm playing around, I dare you to call my bluff. You bitches can swallow nut while I'm tipping my bottle up. I was finished with all you suckers the minute I lost my trust. And I'm sick of going hungry, always living broken bummy, asking to borrow money when you already owe $100. And basically you and everybody that you know's a junkie. All you got in the fridge, sour milk and moldy lunch meat. Feeling like no one loves me, fuck them, y'all can keep hating. Got a problem with authority, bombing police stations. Sick of shopping for my mama's Christmas present at the dollar store. Bills are piling up, but it's more setbacks I cannot afford. Lock your doors, cause you know the boy insane. Look into my eyes, you see a Polaroid of pain. Goddamn, he was a soldier in his day. Now memories are clouded with showers of ceremonies and lowered graves.
So long, been so wrong. Now where do we go from here? Roadblock, gotta hold on. Where do we go from here? I was born in the struggle, and now trouble always got a way of finding me. Down and out, so we hustle, trying to double up, cause nothing in this life come free. So I'm gonna get mine, walking a thin line, gonna put it in drive. I ain't waiting for the smoke to clear. This life, racing against time, think you know what it's like, but homie, you got no idea.
Shit is tough, but fuck it, that's the way that life is. And I've been known to show my history of violence, but nowadays up on the mic is where my mind lives. Falling down this black hole and I ain't seen the light since. People say I ain't the same just like I used to be, and I just say damn, well you better get used to me. Try and talk but nothing ever getting through to me. Trying to make it on my own, man, where the feeling's nothing new to me. Gotta go make a change, really wanna go and make it tonight. All alone with the back to the wall, every day feel like I'm needing to fight. But I pray to God that it keeps me straight, cause I got big dreams in my life. Never really had shit but a dream and a voice to say go get what is mine. Catching myself looking up to the sky, got me thinking about what I'ma do. So I sit back, relax with this glass in my hand, wash away all the thoughts of you as KY.
So long, been so wrong. Now where do we go from here? Roadblock, gotta hold on. Where do we go from here? I was born in the struggle, and now trouble always got a way of finding me. Down and out, so we hustle, trying to double up, cause nothing in this life come free. So I'm gonna get mine, walking a thin line, gonna put it in drive. I ain't waiting for the smoke to clear. This life, racing against time, think you know what it's like, but homie, you got no idea.
Let's go, roll it up, who riding with me? So my soul without signing the deed. Society deem me a menace, beware the sign of the beast. Came up doing crime on the street, I speak my life on these beats. So light the weed and let me finally breathe a sigh of relief. Long way to go and the road ain't paved, got a handful of pills. The devil grabbing the wheel while I'm trying to hold it straight. That's the hand I was dealt in this poker game, but I play my cards right where y'all is dumb enough to fold it straight. Since a young buck I've been holding my own, and since no one is home it ain't hard to get a moment alone. But I swear I'ma be doing right, I'm gonna improve our lives, but that's just something easier said than done, like suicide. It's like I need a neck brace just to keep my head straight, cause I ain't got the rent paid and they just gave me 10 days. I'm about to let the check spray, I'm putting y'all cats in checkmate. My baby boy need a home and I ain't trying to see his address change.
So long, been so wrong. Now where do we go from here? Roadblock, gotta hold on. Where do we go from here? I was born in the struggle, and now trouble always got a way of finding me. Down and out, so we hustle, trying to double up, cause nothing in this life come free. So I'm gonna get mine, walking a thin line, gonna put it in